Nadia, 29, from Kisumu, Kenya, thought she had it all. Her friends often said she was the luckiest woman alive, married to a man who adored her completely. Tendai was the kind of husband women dreamed of. Every Friday, he brought her fresh flowers from the little shop near the lake. On Sundays, he made her breakfast in bed, humming old love songs as he cooked. They'd take long, peaceful drives by Lake Victoria, laughing, holding hands, talking about their future. Even the neighbors called them the perfect couple. But sometimes, perfection hides what the heart can't see. Nadia would often look at Tendai and think, how did I get so lucky? He seemed calm, gentle and devoted, always saying the right words, always showing up. But lately, something about his smile felt off. It was softer, sadder, like a man carrying something heavy behind his charm. One quiet night, as they sat on the balcony watching the city lights shimmer on the water, Tendai leaned over and kissed her forehead. His voice trembled when he whispered, "You are my only peace." Nadia smiled, touched by his tenderness, until she looked into his eyes. They weren't filled with love like before. They glistened, yes, but not from emotion, from guilt. It started small, the kind of things most wives would brush off. One evening when Nadia hugged Tendai after work, she smelled a perfume on his jacket. Sweet, floral, expensive, nothing like the simple scent she wore. At first, she laughed it off, teasing him. "Who's wearing designer perfume at your office now?" He smiled too quickly and said, "Just a client. You know how women are." Then he changed his jacket and turned the conversation toward dinner. But once you start noticing, you can't stop. A few days later, as Nadia cleaned the car, she found something odd. A second phone tucked under the driver's seat. It wasn't his usual one. Her chest tightened. She picked it up, the screen cracked and silent. When she asked Tendai about it that night, he didn't even blink. "Oh, that old thing. Just a work phone," he said casually, slipping it into his pocket before she could ask more. Still, her heart didn't rest. Then came the receipts. Shiny slips of paper from a jewelry store in town. Necklaces, bracelets, a diamond ring. Nadia stared at them, her fingers shaking. He hadn't bought her jewelry in months. Not since their anniversary. When she asked, he chuckled, kissed her cheek and said, "Work gifts for clients, my love. You know how these deals work. It's just business." But it didn't feel like business anymore. At night, when Tendai showered, she'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every little detail. The missed calls, the late-night messages, the sudden, urgent meetings. He was still loving, maybe too loving. Flowers every Friday. Compliments every morning, like a man performing a role too perfectly. Something deep inside her began to whisper. This love felt rehearsed. The gestures were still there, but the warmth behind them was fading, replaced by something cold and practiced. One night, as she sat alone on their balcony, the same one where he once whispered, "You are my only peace," she realized how quiet the house had become, how the laughter had thinned, how her own heart now beat to the rhythm of suspicion. She didn't want to believe it. She prayed she was wrong. But deep down, Nadia knew, when love starts feeling like a script, someone else is writing the lines. It happened on an ordinary night. The kind of night that looks peaceful on the outside but carries a storm in silence. Tendai was in the shower, humming softly like always. Nadia sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through her phone when she heard a faint vibration. The sound came from the drawer beside Tendai's side of the bed. That second phone. The one he called just for work. For a moment she froze. Then curiosity, or maybe fear, made her reach for it. The screen lit up, and her heart stopped. The name flashing across it read, "Mama Grace." Her hand trembled as she stared at the name. Something about it felt too familiar, too personal. Before she could think, she pressed answer. "Hello," she whispered. A soft, tired voice came through. "Tendai, the baby's fever is high," the woman said gently, worry thick in her tone. "Should I take her to the clinic?" Nadia's stomach dropped. The baby. Her throat went dry. "Who is this?" she managed to ask. There was silence on the other end, heavy, suffocating silence. Then the sound of someone's quick breath, and a click. The call ended. For a long moment Nadia just sat there, frozen. The phone felt like fire in her hands. Her mind couldn't keep up. A baby. Mama Grace. Her husband had another phone, another woman, another life. She heard the shower running, water hitting the tiles. The same man who kissed her every morning was behind that bathroom door, washing off lies she never saw coming. Her heart began to pound so hard she thought it might burst. Tears blurred her vision as she stared at her reflection in the mirror across the room. She looked at herself, the loyal wife, the woman who believed she was living a dream, and suddenly she didn't recognize that face anymore. When Tendai stepped out, smiling, towel around his neck, she quickly slipped the phone back into the drawer. Her body was still, but inside, everything had shattered. That night, Nadia lay beside him, pretending to sleep, while her mind replayed the woman's voice over and over. The baby's fever is high. Each word echoed through her chest like thunder. Her tears fell quietly into her pillow, but the storm inside her had only just begun. The next morning, Tendai acted like nothing had happened. He hummed while making tea, kissed Nadia's cheek and said, "See you this evening, my love." His smile looked the same as always. Calm, charming, confident. But now Nadia could see what hid behind it. Secrets, guilt. Her heart was breaking, but she didn't show it. She smiled back, pretending everything was normal. Inside, though, her mind was spinning. Who was Mama Grace? Whose baby had a fever? And how long had he been lying to her? She needed answers, real ones. That evening, when Tendai said he was heading to a late meeting, Nadia quietly grabbed her keys and followed his car. Her hands shook on the steering wheel. The city lights faded as he drove toward the quieter side of Kisumu. Narrow roads, small houses, children playing in dusty yards. She parked a little distance away, heart racing so fast it almost drowned out her thoughts. Then she saw him stop in front of a small yellow house with a white gate. He stepped out, looked around carefully, and knocked on the door. A woman opened it, young, warm-looking, holding a baby in her arms. And when she smiled, he smiled too. The same smile he once saved for Nadia. Nadia's breath caught in her throat. She leaned forward, watching through the half-open window. Tendai reached for the baby, his whole face lighting up. He lifted the little one high in the air and laughed, a deep, happy laugh that Nadia hadn't heard in months. The woman, Mama Grace no doubt, stood beside him, her hand resting on his arm, her eyes soft. For a moment the world stopped. The noise from the street faded, the air seemed to disappear, and Nadia felt her knees weaken. She had come looking for the truth, but nothing could have prepared her for the pain of seeing it. Tendai wasn't just cheating, he was living another life, another home, another family. She watched him kiss the baby's forehead gently, a gesture that once belonged to her. And in that moment, everything inside her shattered quietly. Every breakfast he'd made, every flower he'd bought, every promise he'd whispered, all of it felt like part of a play. Tears rolled down her face as she sat alone in the car, the engine off, the night heavy around her. Her body trembled, but she couldn't move. It wasn't just betrayal, it was replacement. After a while, Tendai walked back to his car, humming the same tune he had sung that morning. Nadia stayed hidden, watching him drive away, her heart numb. By the time she finally turned the key to go home, one thought echoed in her mind, cold and clear. He hadn't just lied to her. He had built another world, without her in it. That night, Nadia waited by the door, her hands trembling as she held her phone, the photo she had taken of Tendai holding the baby. Every minute felt like an hour. She could still see his smile in her mind, the one he gave that child, so full of love and pride. The same smile he used to give her. When Tendai finally walked in, humming like nothing had happened, Nadia's heart pounded so hard it hurt. He kicked off his shoes, loosened his tie, and smiled at her. "My love, you're still awake." Her voice shook, but she didn't hide her pain. "Tendai," she whispered, "whose baby is this?" She held up the phone so he could see the picture. Him, the woman, the child. For a second, his whole face froze. His smile disappeared. His eyes widened, searching hers like a man caught between fear and shame. The silence stretched long enough to break something inside her. Then he did the one thing she didn't expect. He dropped to his knees. Tears filled his eyes as he said, "Nadia, please. I was scared to lose you." His voice cracked. "She was before you. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought it wouldn't matter if it stayed in the past. Nadia stared at him, her breath shaky, her heart torn between rage and disbelief. Before me, she said, her voice rising. You see that child every week, Tendai. You call her Mama Grace. You bought them jewelry, a house, while you looked me in the eyes and said you loved me. He tried to reach for her hand, but she stepped back. Tears streamed down her face now, not the weak kind but the kind that burns. Then why lie every day and call it love, she screamed. Why promise forever if your heart was already divided? He bowed his head, crying harder, his shoulders shaking. Please don't leave me. I'll fix everything. I'll stop seeing them. I'll make it right. But Nadia saw it clearly. This wasn't guilt. This wasn't love. This was fear. He wasn't sorry for what he'd done. He was scared of losing the comfort, the image, the perfect life he had built around her. She looked at him one last time, the man she once thought was her safe place, and suddenly he looked like a stranger. Her voice softened, almost calm. You didn't just break my trust, Tendai. You buried it. And I'm done digging for it. She turned away, her tears falling quietly, leaving him kneeling on the floor, whispering her name into a silence that would never answer back. That night, after Tendai's lies came crashing down, Nadia packed her things in silence. She didn't scream anymore. The tears had dried, leaving only a deep, calm emptiness. She looked around the house one last time, the framed wedding photos, the flowers he used to buy, the memories that now felt like ghosts. Then she picked up her small travel bag, took a deep breath, and walked out into the night. The air outside was cool, quiet, almost peaceful. Every step away from that house felt like shedding a layer of pain. She didn't take jewelry, didn't take money, just her bag and her dignity. For the first time in years, she was walking for herself. She arrived at her friend Amara's place after midnight. Amara, a sharp, strong woman with a lawyer's mind and a loyal heart, opened the door in her pajamas, shocked to see Nadia standing there. One look at her tear-stained face, and Amara didn't ask questions. She just hugged her and said softly, "You can stay as long as you need." For the next few days, Nadia barely spoke. She slept, cried quietly, and stared at the ceiling, replaying every lie, every "I love you" that now felt poisoned. Amara watched her and finally said, "You've cried enough, Nadia. Now let's make him regret underestimating you." Those words hit something inside Nadia, a spark of strength she thought she'd lost. Together, they sat down with cups of tea and began digging through papers and emails. Amara had always been good at details, and soon, she was pulling up Tendai's company documents, business records, property files, everything she could find. Hours passed. Nadia scrolled through line after line of text, her hands shaking as the truth started to unfold. Her name, the woman who had supported him, encouraged him, stood by him, was missing from every joint property. The house, the cars, even the land they had bought together, all registered under his company, or worse, under someone else's name. Then Amara clicked on one file and frowned. "Nadia, look at this." There it was, Grace M. Nyambura, listed as co-owner of multiple properties. Grace, Mama Grace, the same woman from the phone call. Nadia's stomach turned. She felt the room spin for a moment. "He's been moving everything to her name," she whispered, disbelief turning into fire. "He was preparing for a life with her, while I was busy protecting his." Amara reached across the table, gripping her hand. "Then we'll take it all back, legally and loudly." Nadia wiped her tears, her face steady now. She had walked out broken, but something inside her had begun to rebuild, not with love this time but with power. Tendai had taken her trust. Now she was going to take back her peace, and his sleep. Nadia knew revenge wasn't about shouting or breaking things. It was about silence and strategy. She had cried her last tear. Now was time to think. With Amara's help, she gathered every document they had found, the hidden transfers, the fake company names, the money quietly moved to Grace's accounts. Each page told a story of deceit, and Nadia read them all with calm determination. Tendai thought she would run and hide. He never imagined she'd fight back, and smarter than him. One morning, Nadia dressed neatly, in the same calm, confident way she used to when she stood beside Tendai at business events. But this time she wasn't going as his wife. She was going as the woman he underestimated. She went to meet Mr. Kamau, the company's main investor, an older man known for his strict sense of ethics. He had always admired Nadia for her humility and intelligence. When she walked into his office, he looked surprised. "Mrs. Mufaro, it's been a while. How are you?" She smiled politely, though her heart was pounding. "I'm not here as Mrs. Mufaro," she said softly. "I'm here as someone who believes you deserve to know the truth." She laid out the files across his desk, proof of Tendai's fraud, forged documents, and money being siphoned into secret accounts. For a moment Mr. Kamau said nothing. He just stared at the papers, his jaw tightening. "Are you sure of this?" he asked finally. Nadia nodded. "He's been using company funds for personal gain, and moving assets under another woman's name." The old man leaned back, sighed heavily, and said, "I always knew he was ambitious, but I didn't think he was corrupt." He looked up at her and added quietly, "Thank you for your honesty, Nadia. You did the right thing." The next morning, Kisumu woke up to chaos. Tendai's company bank accounts were frozen. Major clients started pulling out. By noon, a headline hit every local news site. "Businessman Tendai Mufaro faces embezzlement probe." Reporters gathered outside his office gates. Employees whispered in panic. Phones rang endlessly. Grace disappeared from public view. And Tendai, the man who once looked untouchable, was suddenly alone, scrambling to explain his misunderstandings. Nadia didn't post anything, didn't brag, didn't even pick up the phone when people called to gossip. She simply sat by the window in Amara's apartment, sipping tea, watching the rain hit the glass. She didn't need to destroy him with anger. The truth had already done it for her. By evening, his empire had fallen apart. All the things he had stolen, lied for, and built on deceit were gone. Just like that. Nadia exhaled deeply, a quiet smile touching her lips. She hadn't shouted, she hadn't begged. She had simply told the truth, and watched it set her free. When the money stopped flowing, chaos began. Grace was the first to panic. The house rent was due, the nanny hadn't been paid, and the lifestyle she had built on stolen comfort was falling apart. She called Tendai again and again, but his phone went unanswered. When she finally saw the news about the embezzlement probe, she snapped. 2 days later, Nadia was at her office, a small but peaceful place she had started working from with Amara, when the door burst open. Grace stormed in, hair messy, eyes wild with anger. "You!" she shouted, pointing at Nadia. "You ruined him. You destroyed everything." The staff froze, but Nadia stayed calm. She closed her laptop slowly and stood up. Her voice was steady, almost gentle. "No, Grace," she said, meeting her eyes. "He ruined himself the moment he lied." Grace's chest heaved. "You think you're better than me? He loved me. He was going to leave you." Nadia gave a sad, tired smile. "If he loved you, you wouldn't have to share his lies. And if he truly loved me, we wouldn't be standing here." For a second, silence filled the room. Grace's rage melted into shame. She turned and walked out, slamming the door behind her. Nadia sat down slowly, her hands trembling, not from fear but from release. She had finally said the truth out loud. That night, just as she was about to go to bed, there was a knock at the door. Amara wasn't home, so Nadia opened it, and there he was. Tendai. His shirt wrinkled, his eyes hollow, his once perfect composure gone. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in a week. "Nadia," he whispered, his voice cracked and tired. "Please. I've lost everything. The company, the investors, even Grace. Everyone turned their back on me." For a moment she looked at him, remembering the man she used to love, the laughter, the drives, the warmth. But all she could see now was what he had become. A man who destroyed everything real for something fake. He stepped closer. "I can't live without you," he said desperately. "Please give me another chance. I'll make it right this time." Nadia's eyes glistened, but her face stayed calm. "You didn't lose me, Tendai," she said softly. "You traded me for lies, for greed, for another woman's arms." He broke down, falling to his knees, begging. But this time Nadia didn't waver. She didn't yell or cry. She simply picked up her bag, walked to the door and said, "Goodbye, Tendai." As she stepped out into the cool night air, she felt lighter than she had in years. For the first time, she wasn't running away. She was walking toward peace. Months later, life looks completely different for Nadia. She's no longer the woman who cried herself to sleep, waiting for someone who didn't deserve her. Instead, she's standing in front of a wide glass window in her new office, the headquarters of House of Healing, a wellness retreat center she built from scratch. The walls are painted in soft pastels, the air smells like lavender, and women walk in every day with tired eyes and heavy hearts, just like she once did. First, it wasn't easy. Nadia had nothing when she left Tendai. No savings, no property, nothing that had her name on it. But she had her mind, her medical degree, her compassion, and her will to rise. With Amara's help, she applied for small business grants, reached out to local sponsors, and worked endless nights drafting her dream plan. She wanted to build a place where broken women could come to breathe again. A place that reminded them that healing isn't weakness, it's power. When House of Healing opened its doors, it was more than a retreat. It became a movement. Women from different cities started arriving, divorcees, single mothers, widows, and dreamers trying to rebuild. Nadia would sit with them in small circles, listening to their stories, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing. She guided them through therapy sessions, fitness programs, and meditation classes. But most importantly, she helped them find their voice again. Soon her story went viral. The headlines spread across Africa. The woman who chose healing over hate. She started getting invited to radio interviews, TV panels, and women's empowerment events. Her calm voice and quiet confidence inspired millions. People didn't see her as a victim anymore. They saw her as proof that peace after pain is possible. At one conference, a young woman stood up and asked, "Nadia, after everything you went through, how did you stay strong?" Nadia smiled softly, her eyes glistening under the lights. "Because I realized," she said, "love should feel safe, not staged." The audience went silent, then broke into applause. Cameras flashed, but Nadia didn't pose. She just smiled, grateful. Later that night, as she walked through the quiet garden of her retreat, she looked up at the stars and whispered, "I didn't lose anything. I found myself." In that moment, she knew. Her healing was her revenge, her peace was her power, and her story was far from over. A year later, the city looks different, brighter, louder, more alive. On one of the busiest streets, a massive billboard catches everyone's attention. It shows a picture of Nadia, smiling with confidence, her eyes filled with peace. Beside her face, in bold golden letters, it reads, "What broke me once now builds others." That morning, Tendai walks by. His clothes are worn, his face tired. He stops in front of the billboard, frozen. For a long moment, he just stares at her image. The woman he once lied to, betrayed, and lost. He whispers her name under his breath, "Nadia." His eyes glisten, but it's too late. The world that once admired him now barely remembers his name. The empire he built on lies is gone, and she's the one who rose from its ashes. Meanwhile, miles away, Nadia stands on the balcony of House of Healing, her wellness retreat now thriving. The air smells like jasmine and hope. Around her, women laugh, talk, and share stories under the golden sunlight. Some are painting, others are meditating by the lake. It's a place full of peace, the kind she once prayed for in silence. She watches them with a gentle smile, her heart warm. For the first time in years, she feels whole. Looking out at the sky, she whispers to herself, "The secret wasn't just his. It was mine too. I was stronger than I ever knew." The wind brushes against her hair, carrying her words into the open air. She closes her eyes, breathes deeply, and smiles again. Her peace has become her revenge. And this time the story ends on her terms. In light, not in pain.